And right now, Rebecca Hall joins me in Studio Q. Rebecca, Christine Chubbuck died in 1974 before you were even born. What was it about this character that drew you to it?
Well, a lot of things. It's obviously a fascinating story. I think when people hear it, they tend to fall into, when they hear just the story, rather, of what happened, it tends to sort of fall into two camps. You either sort of feel a sort of curiosity and sympathy,
Yeah.
or you feel a sort of horror, and she must have been a monster.
Right.
And I think the filmmakers fall into the camp of there's something interesting here. Like, who was the person there? And I suppose what drew me to it was reading the script and understanding that actually this was an incredibly empathetic film. It's a film about sensationalism that's not sensationalistic.
Right.
It's about trying to humanize someone that otherwise would be consigned to history as probably a bit of a monster. I feel it's very real and moving as a result. I suppose what really drew me, though, is the sense of there are a lot of films about the coolness of being a misfit and kind of how
Yes.
like that makes you look very cool. I don't know that how many films there are, certainly about women, where it shows how painful it is to feel that you don't fit in and that you're different. And I feel that we can all relate to that at some points in our life.
It's so true. So many people now claim to be geeks because it is seen
Yeah.
as so cool, and it doesn't reflect the real depth and sadness.
No, the struggle of that. Yeah.
The listener no doubt fell in love with you, got to know you in The Town, where you played the lead role. It was an amazing performance. This is different because it's not just your interpretation of a character. You actually are portraying a real live person.
Absolutely. Yeah.
What was that challenge like, and how much did you have to go on?
Really very little. And I decided to keep it very little because Craig Shilowich wrote the script as a combination of hearing about the story and relating to it because of his own personal relationship with mental health issues. So he had a story that he wanted to tell.
Okay.
He felt great sympathy for this character, this person. He talked to friends and co-workers, but then he made a decision to make a piece of art. It's not documentary realism, it's art.
Right.
And in turn, I had what he gave me to go on. And I had to be faithful to that as an artist.
Right.
And what that was principally the script. And then secondarily, he gave me one article that was written about her at the time. And 20 minutes of footage of her doing her morning show called the Suncoast Digest, which is a very dry, arid, boring piece of footage where she's talking to someone about a zoning petition in Sarasota.
Yeah.
But it gave me her voice, and it gave me an indication of what her body language might have been like. And then, the way I think of it is a little bit like a first impression. When you meet someone and you have a gut response, and often that goes awry, and sometimes your gut response can be the most true.
Right.
I think the creation of this character was to watch 20 minutes of her and have that gut response, and then let imagination and instinct build on that gut response. And I hope very much so that it captures the spirit and remains faithful to her, because I do feel a responsibility to do that regardless of my allegiances to what is art and not documentary.
You certainly transformed yourself. Obviously, hair and makeup, the full eyebrows and the hair, but your whole, for listeners who like me watch you a lot, your whole body image, the way you held I felt particularly your arms and your shoulders.
Yeah.
I could just see this, complete change. When you are finished with a role like that, do you ever catch yourself still portraying that physically, or does it quickly go away?
No, it doesn't. It's like it's a hard one, because I think you have to really go there. I have this sort of pet theory that like really good acting is invisible.
Yeah.
Like you don't see it, and because it just is. And I think when there's a big character like this, the challenge is to make that all invisible and somehow internalize it. So you are you are doing what I just said. You are internalizing it, and that can be difficult. I mean, I definitely had some crazy patches during the filming where I was, I just hear her voice all the time. Your voice
Yeah.
inside your head is often your voice, and
Instead of
and
hers,
there was a
yeah.
point where it started to sound like Christine, and then I'd have, sort of little chats with her in my head, which was very strange.
Wow.
But I
She,
cared about her enormously. This sort of
she
other
was
construction that it was,
she
I
seemed
cared
to
about
be
her.
easy to care about because she
Mm.
had all these ambitions. You could understand what she was trying to do. There's even a really cool part in the movie where it's like she is seeing the future of reality television. Like she's
Absolutely.
having this
Yeah,
idea
yeah,
of people want to see what's behind, but it
yeah.
seems she just couldn't catch a break. Do you think that was gender based? Was it
I
personality
do.
based? What do you?
I think it is gender based, and I think the film is a feminist critique in that sense because it does show a woman who is actually pretty capable, and it's also in America at a time when it's the golden age of journalism. You've got Watergate, you've got all these sort of
Right.
extraordinary things happening, but simultaneously, it's also the moment in America where the media starts to turn towards sensationalizing the news to get more viewing
Right.
and and get ad revenue or whatever it is, and there's this sort of there's this perfect storm of events that's going on in the movie, and at the
Mm,
heart of it you have a woman who's operating in a unmeritocratic environment. She does not get success based on what she puts in, and that is to do with the fact that she's a woman,
yeah.
and that's hard. That's really hard to watch, but also she's I I think it's also strangely hopeful
Yeah.
because there's a I think you watch the film and it can be funny sometimes and it can be touching because you see someone who's desperately trying to survive. Every day she's desperately trying to make it, and every day she's getting up and she's performing what she imagines is going to be a successful version of what it is to be normal and to be like everyone else.
Mm.
And sometimes she fails and sometimes she succeeds, but regardless, the people around her want to help her and they love her and they respect her, and I think that's optimistic about humanity because what you see is a community wanting to give to her, and her just the tragedy being her not being able to see that.
So true, and you feel her struggle every day, and I thought the movie really portrayed that beautifully, and it did show. It didn't show her as a monster, but I understand her family still were not thrilled at the fact that the movie was being made. What's that like for you to be in that strange
It's
place?
really sad because I do feel that I think the sort of the artistic freedom thing that people talk about is a real thing and has to be real because art is the forum where you can debate and analyze and have perspectives. You wouldn't ask a journalist to be true to one source, and this
Yeah.
particular source is difficult because it has so many. It's trauma that was personal for them,
Hmm.
and I would never want them to relive that ever.
Yeah.
On the other hand, what she did wasn't personal. She made her tragedy public and she left society with a lot of questions. And what we're doing is grappling with that. And that's an artist's responsibility.
True.
I wish with my whole heart that her brother would watch the film, but I don't. At the same time, I would never ask him to watch it.
Mm.
But we have reached out. He has declined, and I understand why. I think that if he saw it, he would see that it's heartfelt and sympathetic and so far away from being exploitative. But the movie, I hope, speaks for itself. And,
It,
you
and
know,
it, there's this beautiful, all kinds of beautiful moments throughout it, where the anchor guy is kind of goofy. He's getting promoted instead of her. You can understand her frustrations. I think it's powerful for other women because she was a beautiful woman. You're a beautiful woman playing her, yet still having all these problems socially. Because sometimes people have this image, oh, if I were pretty, life would be. No,
yeah,
that's not how
it's
it
not
works.
necessarily true. Yeah.
But all that is portrayed, yet she still couldn't get past it.
Mm,
But in her final, she says an attempted suicide.
mm.
Do you think her intention was actually to die, or was it to just hit the sensational thing?
That's I can't speak for that. No one can speak for what happened there. It's gone to the grave with her. I will say that I think that's just good journalism because she doesn't
Doing
know
the
what's going to
attempted?
happen. It's just
Oh,
true,
right,
isn't it?
right, right, right. That's that's so true.
Yeah.
Um, it was 1974. It was a time that was very difficult for women, and nobody can know this for sure. But if you're looking into your crystal ball,
Mm,
had she lived,
mm.
and maybe been able to get a little bit of help for what was ailing her, where do you think her career could have gone?
I don't know that. I mean, I don't know. I don't know because I didn't know her, and I don't know enough about the truth of it. All I know is what our creation of her is. So if you're asking me about the fictional character that we created, then
Yeah, yeah.
I can answer that, but I can't answer otherwise. It's you know, I think that my hunch is that she would have had a pretty good career. I don't think she would have been stratospheric. I don't think she would have been, but I think she would have had a good career, and she would have gone to a major.
Mm.
She would have gone to a major market, and she would have been a good political journalist, full of integrity, in a time when that was less valued. So she probably would still have
Yeah, she
struggled.
was a serious character for sure. As a woman in a competitive industry,
Yeah.
even though you were born decades apart, were there things that you could relate to, moments that you thought, yeah, in my acting career, I've had some of these frustrations as well? Like the mental illness aside, just
Yeah,
that struggle to have
yeah.
your work taken seriously and
I think from time to time it's a struggle. Look, I mean, I look at Christine as being a bit of a, you know, if I'm being honest about it, I think an actor is lucky to get 3 Christine type of roles in their career, and that's only if they're very successful,
mhm,
and only if they're very lucky. So, and often only if they're a man. So I think it's rare. I mean, the kind of part that I think it's increasingly frequent that women get to play heroes, and hallelujah, about time. I think it's rarer that women get to be leading anti-heroes. The
so
kind
true.
of big, extreme, strange, wonderful, rich kind of characters that someone like Robert De Niro built his career on in the 70s. You
True.
never see a woman getting to do that, not really. To be unlikable but lovable at the same time, I think is a rare thing. And I feel like I have been deeply frustrated as an actor not getting to play those roles because that's the stuff that interests me. Because the stuff that humanizes characters that are otherwise unthinkable, uncomprehensible, I think is the job of what I do. Like
Mm.
to make people, to give people that capacity for compassion and tolerance. That's what I want to do with my job.
Well,
So, you know,
you did it beautifully.
thank you.
Thank you so much for chatting.